Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Steelheads Weekly. And Mark, the shenanigans and everything are all done with the Eastern Conference. Everything is set in stone. And I can't remember the last time that the Eastern Conference, or not even the Eastern Conference, the entire league was not set until the final day of the regular season. Not a single playoff matchup was announced until yesterday. So that was fun. And here we are. We know the Steelheads matchup and the playoffs are here. So your initial thoughts and feelings. What are you feeling?
I don't recall a time where it's ever been this way of like, man, like who's Mississauga playing? Because like every year we're like, oh, they're playing these guys, kind of set in stone by like early March. But you are right. It was interesting because it went down to the final, day of the season to figure everything out. And I personally like the matchup with Sudbury. I know we talked about it yesterday briefly about how there could be, travel implications, 4 hours there, 4 hours back. But either way, it's travel for both teams. There's no really beneficial team, I'd say. But I like this matchup. I think they're both based on skill. Um, Mississauga does have a couple of advantages, which we'll get into the show later. But I genuinely think it's a good matchup. It's better than Brantford, better than North Bay, better than Ottawa. Their best matchup would have been Kingston or Sudbury, and they got one of them.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. I think when you're looking at the standings, although it seems weird to say because Sudbury has so much offense, which I'm sure we'll get into, but their best bet was to finish second and face Kingston, of course,
Hmm.
or to get the Sudbury Wolves because, yes, Brantford's been sliding, but Brantford in the playoffs, I'm not sure you want to play there, and they could be a tough team and come alive in the playoffs. And obviously, you're not going to play Oshawa first round. Oshawa completely took over the conference, and when you look at North Bay too, the Steelheads have had trouble with North Bay. They played them last year. They lost to them in the first round. So I think you would want to break from that. And here you
Hmm.
are. You get the Sudbury Wolves. And you're right with the travel thing. Like, yes, I brought it up. But you're right. Like, both teams have to travel back and forth to games. It's not like one team is worse off than the other, right? So, but that is where home ice advantage comes in very handy. And I'm glad the Steelheads were able to finish in fourth again, which
Yes.
is nice. They get that home ice advantage. And, the schedule came out too, and they actually changed something because game two was
Oh,
scheduled to
did they?
be yes. So game one is obviously this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. at Paramount Fine Food Center, and
Yeah.
then game two was supposed to be Saturday, March 30th at 7 p.m. They've changed it to a 4 p.m. start, which I'm a huge
Oh,
fan of.
perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
awesome. And then you got game three on Monday, April 1st in Sudbury. Game four will be Wednesday, April 3rd. And then it's pretty much every other day, well, except for game six, I guess. But then you have, a possible game five in Mississauga on the 5th. And then game six on Monday, April 8th in Sudbury. And then if needed, I guess all three if needed, a game seven back in Mississauga on Tuesday, April 9th. So we'll see how the series goes. It could go seven. It's going to be very close.
It'll be a interesting series because both teams played each other 6 times and they split it. Um, Mississauga won three, and then they lost two in regulation, one in overtime or a shootout, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, it'll be a coin flip in the end. It's like I mentioned in my series preview today that Sudbury's no slouch on offense, man.
No,
They have
no. That is the one
they have
thing.
really good players.
Yeah, they can score at will. I think that's one thing I believe I said exactly that to you,
Yes.
that they can score at will, and that'll be the ultimate deciding factor, I think, in this series, especially because we know historically, and if you're watching this or listening and you're a Steelheads fan, you know historically they have a discipline problem. They have a problem, especially in the playoffs, staying out of the box. And if that continues, that'll be their downfall. That'll be the key for Sudbury Wolves in the series.
Try to get them to take as much penalties as you can. Um, and again, like they have the offense of like Quinton Musty, um, David Guyetti, and I don't think I pronounced that right. Goyetti? Yeah, yeah, pretty sure I pronounced that
Could
right.
be Guyette. I'm not sure, but
Guyetti? Either way, we'll find out Thursday or Saturday because he's probably going to score again, assist, and then we'll just go from there. But no, like he had like, 117 points. He led the league in points, and then Musty was behind him with 107.
yeah. So
Like
no slouches on offense for the Sudbury Wolves.
no, and then they have another guy, Dale. Dale. I'm gonna try to. Now this is a international name here, I believe. Dalibor Dorveski. Yeah, I said that right.
You nailed that. I think
That's
you nailed that. Yeah, that was not bad.
really sure. And then he had about I believe 88 points on the season. So
Yeah,
he's those are the three guys. I like to pinpoint three players in every article I do, and those three guys are just yeah,
they're the three-headed monster for the
contain them.
Wolves. The three-headed
Yes, they are.
monster heading into this series, and like you said, obviously the leading scorer in the league, right? Like one thing. Let's get one thing straight for everyone, right? The key to this series will be to contain those three and the Wolves in general on offense. If the Steelheads can do that, this series will be won, right?
Because the Wolves do not play defense.
No, they've forgotten about that. And their defense is not great. And the goaltending, which you got into in your article as well, is an issue for them. Their goaltenders have split time, but it hasn't necessarily been great.
Right, there's three goaltenders, but I focused on the one because I'm guessing, because I've checked everything for Sudbury. It doesn't really even say who's their starter essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's Jacob Vonderez. He's a Carolina Hurricane draft pick. So I figured I'm like, okay, well they're not going to make an NHL prospect and backup. So he's 20, 30, and two. Sorry, 20, 10, and 2 on the season. He had 37 starts, but five of those he was pulled,
Right. Like they have
if my
not
math is
had
correct.
great success in the goaltending position this year.
No, he literally had a 3.79 GAA and a .861 save percentage.
Right. On the year. And for
Yeah.
context, we just found out that, with the season wrapping up, Ryerson Leanders, for contrast, led the league in save percentage this year with a 909.
Yes.
That is a very drastic difference between the two starting goaltenders, presumably for this series, right?
Very different. So Mississauga the offense, has the offense and defense. Well, actually, no, sorry. I'm going to scratch that. Mississauga has the defense and the goaltending, but I'd say the offense is about the same.
About the same. I would say that's fair. I think point totals don't speak for like Misa and Martone, for example. Like I think in a playoff series they're going to be very dangerous because the slate is
Yes.
clean, right? Everyone starts at zero all over again.
Yes.
So I think that like the offense is pretty even. Although I would, if I was to give one category to the Wolves, it would be the offense, of course. But the other two, it's the Steelheads, and it's gonna. I mean, playoffs come down to defense and goaltending, right? Yes, you need goals,
Right.
but sometimes you get not the greatest goals, and you get chip in goals. It goes off of a leg or whatever. That's playoffs, right? It comes down to defense and goaltending, and I think the Steelheads' defense has only gotten better in the second half too.
Yes. Yes. And this is the thing, Mississauga has the advantage there, and you know they need to take advantage of it all, and I hope. But Sudbury seems to give them problems.
Yes, that is another thing too. Sudbury has played them well this year. I think I saw. So obviously they split the season series, and I saw that Sudbury and Mississauga both won two at home and one on the road. So that
Yes.
could come in handy too. The home ice advantage in this, come
And they
like
had
a
that
game
crazy
seven.
8-7 game,
Yeah, that too, which was like insane. Of course, that was the one game we didn't go to.
of
Um,
course.
but yeah, no, this series is fireworks, potential for some fireworks, and it's going to be exciting. And I think there's going to be unsung heroes. I think depth guys are going to come to play. I'm talking about the
Yep.
Steelheads at least. The depth guys are going to come to play. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people because a lot of them have been surprising me. Like I think Schrott's going to have, a coming out party here. Finn Harding has looked great. I feel like nobody's
Yeah.
talking about him. This guy has
No,
been great.
he's silent. He's been doing really well. He
Yeah.
was noticeable on the ice. He's making the right plays defensively, and he's contributed offensively. He had about 20 something points this season actually, so he's pretty quiet. Quiet total there. And we'll see what he does. And then obviously, the top pair of like Sharp and Leskar, they're gonna do just fine. This
Mhm.
suits their element of playing a physical playoff type style game. Leskar is gonna be trucking guys,
Yeah.
and then Sharp's gonna be doing his thing. Then guys like Fibbiger can pitch in. Like this is the guys like Jacob Fibbiger. This series will be good for him because it's just gonna be an offensive game series.
Yeah, it could turn into a track meet sometimes, and I think it's gonna. The Steelheads have players who can like that'll favor the Wolves, but the Steelheads have players who don't shy away from that. Like they can go
Right.
toe to toe with the Wolves in that way. I just think the Steelheads will have to focus on playing a more controlled game, more zone game,
Right.
because if they can, it could get out of hand if it does go to just rush chances and a track meet, right? So we'll have to see how that goes, but I think that the defenses look great, and like most of the guys are playing with a lot of poise. Like I like what I see, even through like some of the losses, like let's say to Oshawa and North Bay recently. A lot of the defense is playing with poise back there. Like they'll move the puck, but not in a panic. They'll put in like good areas, right?
They're taking their time, but they need to just keep doing what they're doing with some things and work on other stuff. One thing I want to touch on that you and I mentioned is we mentioned it Friday was the power play, how they do not shoot.
Yep, yep. They'll look for a
Um,
perfect pass or play, but it's usually not available due to their setup because they're
right.
really perimeter heavy on the power play, and they don't necessarily ever put it in, and they don't really shoot unless it's a perfect play. And I think that's a huge problem.
Exactly.
The penalty kills look good in terms of special teams, but the power play I am worried about. So that yeah, definitely.
Yes. But like I've said as well for my article as well about Sudbury that Mississauga could take advantages on. Sudbury gives up a lot of goals. They give up 272 goals this season.
Hmm.
It's not great. I'd probably say it's probably about maybe in the bottom. It's not in the bottom five. Definitely in the bottom 10. That was a hard stat, by the way, to check because they didn't really have a real stat on that. Even
Yeah,
though I think it is a stat. But the league doesn't like have it in a category, so you kind of have like do math in your head. Um, but yeah, no, they were close. I'd say to the bottom. I'd say right after like Niagara and Sarnia because those guys give up like 300 goals this season,
hmm
and Mississauga gave up the third last fewer goals, 212.
and I think the top two teams were London, which is the best team in the league,
Yeah,
and
London, Oshawa.
Oshawa, who's the first place in the Eastern Conference. So you're behind both of those teams. That's not bad company. And that's a great stat, like top three in the league. Like that's fantastic. And the Wolves
Yeah.
are going to have, it's clashing styles. It really is in this playoff series. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. I wanted to mention Leskovar too, because you did too. Like we're in playoffs now. Like this is his time. It's a shine. Like this is where he's going to come alive.
Oh, he's gonna just like Friday. He nailed a couple guys. He
I'm
even hit
telling
the
you,
one
it's
dude
once a game. It's once a game now. Like blow
for
somebody
Friday. That
up.
was even like he blew up like three guys on Friday. But no, he'll thrive in this like element. Um, who else was I gonna say? Like him and Sharp, they'll do like Sharp's gonna probably put on a good offensive. He'll do well offensively too in this playoffs.
Yeah.
He had. I'm trying to get off the top of my head. I don't want to go to my article enough. He had 54 points this season. 53 off by one.
Close.
53 points. So he's gonna get some points in this postseason here.
Yeah.
This series.
You would hope so. He has been a driver for them offensively on the back end. So
Yeah.
you would hope that continues into the playoffs. And like there's a couple of guys like I'm excited to see, like Parker von Richter again.
I like him.
Solid defensive defenseman. Can't really complain about him. He doesn't really come up in conversations because he is too busy doing good things in the defensive zone. Like
Yeah, he.
Go
Are
ahead.
you going? Are you?
No, like him and Finn Harding, you barely talk about them because there's nothing to talk about. They're just silently
Yeah.
good at what they do.
Yeah. That's what it is. It reminds me. Who can I say it reminds me? I was gonna say like sort of like a Zach Bogosian-ish type 2021 Zach Bogosian. Where, like they just do the right thing. It's like, oh, I don't notice you. Great, keep doing it.
Yeah, you're a big factor on the team, but it's not like I don't know, you're not like Victor Hedman or something where you're like the guy, right?
Exactly.
But you're a very big piece to the back end. And I think I'm excited to see what they do because it's just a good unit back there. And when the games tighten up, I think they're just going to get better. So that it's going to be good to watch. But, Martone looks like he hasn't really missed a step coming back from
Nope.
injury. He looks great. So that's going to be exciting to see what he does in the playoffs. Misa, obviously the career year. Excited to see what he can do. But again, the games are going to tighten up. So I'm interested to see how if Misa is going to be able to use his speed effectively, or like how that's kind of going to play into things. But because Sudbury's defense is not great either. So I'm interested to just see how it plays out, right? But yeah, there's a lot of guys chipping in. Like I mentioned, Sherratt too. I like his game the last little while. I wonder if he chips in for a couple goals, right? Because this is where the depth, when you go down the line, I feel like the Steelheads just have more depth in more areas than the Wolves. The Wolves just have maybe better top line talent.
Exactly. That's where the Wolves have it, where Mississauga doesn't.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like, I guess I can compare. I guess you can kind of compare like the Steelheads, like I guess like the 2019 Columbus Blue Jackets in a way, where it's like they don't have like the skillful guys, but like they have the guys that could win them a series.
Right. And they
Okay.
did.
Yeah. So it's sort of like that in a way. But I lost my train of thought here. Um, I just lost my train of thought right there. It's sort of like the Columbus where they could take it to Sudbury, just kind of shut down their offense.
Yes.
We're Leaf fans, so like we know how teams do when they shut down our best players. That's what the Steelheads have to do to Sudbury.
But you know what? Every year, the game plan against the Leafs to bring it to the NHL level is shut down Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. And for the most part, teams have done that every time, and that's why the Leafs have lost. So if you're able to do
Right.
that to the Sudbury Wolves, you checkmate, I feel like, right? A lot of people are saying, I've seen a lot on Twitter yesterday, Steelheads fans are saying that they're scared of the series. A lot of people are they're like, what's the biggest upset in the East this year? And people are saying Sudbury over Mississauga. First of all,
But
that's
they're
not a big upset.
no, because like they're both 1 point back. They're one
Very
point.
close. Anyone in the East besides, if you go 6 and up, it's not an upset.
Yeah,
But
like if Barry takes Oshawa, that's an upset.
sure. But anyone above that, it's really not in my eyes this year because everyone's so close. But a lot of people are looking at the Wolves and saying, I'm scared. But if you can shut down those guys, I feel like the Steelheads have a fantastic chance at winning this series, right?
Exactly. And actually, you know, one thing we should also touch on. They didn't overplay their goalies this season.
No. And Leanders looks great and ready to go. And I think that's like, we've been talking about it the whole time. And that's one thing you have been talking about since we started the show and going to games and stuff, not overplaying your goalies because you do it every year.
And it's worked. I mean, I'm just gonna put the stat here on Leanders. Um, they didn't overplay him. They put Jack in net for 25 games, which is great.
Mhm.
Next year, that kid's gonna build off it, maybe get him 30, 35 games. So this season, Leanders, dude, he played in 46 games. Finally,
Yep. And
they didn't overplay their goalies.
no, for reference, like if you don't keep tabs on the Steelheads, or maybe you're new to the Steelheads, there's been 3 seasons in Steelheads history where the backup has played 4 games. It's not sustainable. By the time you get to the playoffs, your starter is exhausted and burnt out. And this year, Jack has played a substantial amount of hockey, and Leanders has, like, he's still played a majority of the games. Obviously, he's played 40,
Yeah, he's the
over
starter.
40
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
Yeah, he's the starter. But he hasn't played every single game. He hasn't played in 3-3s, right? Like previous goalies have. So he's not burnt out when he gets to the playoffs. He's probably mentally prepared, ready to go. His body's probably feeling pretty good. He's put in a great effort this season. Obviously, the best save percentage in the league this year. So I'm excited to see what he does because he looks like, for the first time in a long time, the Steelhead starter heading into the playoffs is going to be mentally and physically prepared and ready to go.
Yeah, and it won't be his first time in the playoffs. I mentioned as well in my article, he did start last year in the playoffs.
Yep.
He started all 6 games, which I completely forgot because I thought they started. What was the other guy's name from last year? It was
I might
he
be
was the
thinking
switcher.
I was going to say Bazarin, but I feel like that was 2 years
No,
ago.
that was 2 years ago.
Um,
Um, it's like I can't pronounce his name. Like,
I actually can't
um,
remember. Oh, Oh my
He
goodness, I
played
can't
at
remember.
the
He was
World
an
Juniors.
import. He was an import goalie. I forget his name.
Yes,
Oh my goodness, it feels like that was like a lifetime ago actually. With
it does, but it was last year.
Ivan Kovic coming in. Yes.
So I thought he was the starter last year, but he was a starter for a bit, and then he lost the starting job to Leanders. Uh, I thought he was a starter in the playoffs. No, it was all Leanders all last year. Um,
As a rookie as well.
as a rookie. And he'll build off of last season. He played in 6 games, went 2-4, had a 3.92 GAA and a point eight six one save percentage, which obviously not good, but he's going to build off of that. And as we know, Leanders has been one of the best goalies in the OHL this year.
Yeah, and the goalie we were thinking of, I had to search it up, is Ballieri. He was the I guess starter last year because Ryerson Leanders was a rookie. But you're right, Ryerson Leanders came in as a rookie last year, and the Steelheads were not expected to win a game. I feel like by most in last year's playoffs, and they took it to 6, and they're back this year with still a very young roster. Leanders is a year better, year more of experience, well rested. I think it lends well to the Steelheads.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And actually, we should mention it. It's 2 years in a row they haven't overplayed their goalie. Leanders tried at 35 last year.
He was just so good as a rookie. He was great. They did split time. It's just last year. I feel like this year, I guess I worded it wrong, but this year he's a year old. Like I have more confidence, and I feel like he has more confidence in himself not being a rookie. Whereas last year you're a rookie, and you know.
Yeah, so it's been 2 years in a row they haven't overplayed their goalies, which has been good. I guess my brain is just probably from like years past, and
well, up until I guess
right?
last year it was that
it was
way.
Before COVID. Before COVID, they kept doing that, even with Ranger and Ingham.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I mean, I love the way the Steelheads are playing. It's a Steelhead Central show so obviously we're going to be a little biased. So clearly, I think the Steelheads win this series. And I think I'm going to give Sudbury some credit. I think the Steelheads are going to have to make 2 separate trips to Sudbury. I think it's going to get done in 6. But Mark, what do you think? What do you think happens in this series?
I agree with you. I think it goes to 6, and I hate to say it, but I also think it'll go to Game 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think Mississauga, they're the better team, so they should win this. Keyword is should.
Yes, I think Mississauga will prevail, whether it be 6 or 7 games. Again, I'm gonna stick with 6. I could see it going 7 just because of top line scoring. And again, if the Steelheads get into penalty and discipline trouble, that game, whatever game it happens in, will go to the Wolves if they capitalize. It will. It just will. They could take over a game like that. So, it's going to be important. The Steelheads can fight, right? And they might be very close games, 4-3 games, whatever it is, 3-2 games. If the Steelheads, lack discipline and they go to the box, the Wolves will take over that game.
Exactly. And, we'll see what happens starting Thursday. Obviously, you and I won't be there, but we'll be following it.
Yeah.
We'll be there Saturday. So hopefully when we go Saturday, Mississauga's up 1-0. And we go from there as fans, and we'll talk about it on Monday.
I think pressure's on too, because Sudbury's a very good team, and you have to take game 1 if you're the Steelheads, because if you go down 1-0, I understand splitting the series, but if you go down 1-0, that's tough. That will be tough.
Yeah. So they'll need to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, they will. And
Thursday.
It all starts Thursday, and it's exciting. The playoffs are finally here, and
and it's funny. I did tell you a couple of days. It was yesterday or Saturday. It's a full circle moment with Sudbury.
Yeah.
So, it's weird how the world works. So basically, when the Ice Hogs left Mississauga, their last series was against Sudbury. Sudbury was the underdog in that series. They were the 7th place seed. They took out the 2nd place seed, Mississauga, and then Sudbury went out of the finals that year. My memory's correct.
07, right? I believe they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now Mississauga is relocating to Brampton, and their last series in Mississauga, Sudbury.
Well, it's not the last. It's the first of 4 this year, the way I see it, until they make the final.
That's a good way to put it.
I'm still rooting for a Misa versus Misa final this year. That's what I'm
It could happen.
for. Hey, it's up in the air. It could happen. Oshawa looks good, but it's there.
if they go on a run, I could see more in the conference final.
Yeah. And I think it starts with this series. You gain a little bit of confidence, and I think the sky is the limit for the Steelheads team, as they've shown this year. They can hang with like anyone. They can.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it'll be exciting to watch. And one thing we didn't mention that I just thought of, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, is the Steelheads this year, fittingly enough, in their last year in Mississauga, set franchise records for points and wins in a season.
Yeah, which is great. So hopefully they can continue that over at Brampton.
Yep.
One thing I've noticed is that the crowd has been picking up too at games.
Yeah.
And my thought is, where was this for most of the season?
What I notice around the OHL in my time covering the OHL and my time covering it and covering the Steelheads, the start of the season is very slow in terms of attendance, and especially in Mississauga, very, very slow. And then it kind of picks up around the winter time, especially, the winter break and stuff, school. But I find not even the second half, from the end of February to through the playoffs, which is not a very big sample size, it's maybe like 10 games, the crowds are very good. Like, not sold out or anything, but they're good. They're into the games. I always find that late in the year, the crowds are a lot better than earlier in the year.
Yeah, I just wish it made sense.
I know, but I don't know what it is, but that is the way it is, and that's something I've noticed in my time covering the team in the league. So I don't know, it continues again this year, but it's nice to see people back, because attendance league wide was struggling right out of COVID, and it's nice to see, like, this season, like, just the way the season has gone has felt more normal than anything in the last 3 years.
Even Sudbury doesn't look like they do well with attendance either.
No, most teams struggle. I mean, there has been talks of North Bay too. I mean, struggling, because North Bay wasn't great for a little while. When they first got their team back, obviously they made the final. They were a great team, and then you kind of go on the down spiral, right? As junior hockey, as you do, unless you're the London Knights, and they were struggling with attendance for a little bit too. But they're there. It's just you put a good team together and they'll come, right? So
exactly right. So I mean, the problem is just it so happened to be that Mississauga's had this trouble-free couple of years, not even good 10 years. So yeah.
What I will say, last thing at least, and this goes for you too, Mark. Playoffs start Thursday. At the time we are releasing this, we know for sure that this is the last games and playoff series. Maybe not series, but playoffs and last potential games at Paramount Fine Food Center. The last OHL games in Mississauga. So if you're watching this, you're a Steelheads fan, you're planning on going, whatever it is, and you're planning on going, even if you're a Sudbury fan, enjoy this. Enjoy this little stretch, because this is it in Mississauga, as far as we know, right? Who knows? Never say never, but as far as we know, they're moving to Brampton next year, so enjoy this little stretch.
Yeah, and playoffs are fun, so, I mean, it's going to be fun hockey.
It is. It's always fun, because the games get very exciting. Like, the scoring kind of goes away sometimes, and the games get like the blood gets pumping even more. So
exactly.
I love the physical play.
I've seen a lot of fun playoff games at that arena. So
yes,
looking forward to seeing at least good. And I'm going to say 12 more.
Yes,
that's 2 series wins.
No, more than that.
Win,
no, we're getting more than that. Steelheads are going to the conference final this year, at least.
So that is 12 wins then.
Yeah.
No, then they go to the final. Actually, never mind.
If you're counting just home games, then yes, yeah. But it's going to be an interesting series, and again, just enjoy it. Enjoy this ride, and I think the Steelheads are going to surprise. They always find a way to surprise, because people just doubt the Steelheads all the time, no matter if they finish second. Like, they always do, so they'll find a way to surprise again.
They're going to go on a 2010 majors run, final, losing 5.
It's funny you say that, because it's interesting. This year, them and the Generals both finished, tops of the conference, or higher in the conference. They put together great seasons, and they're built for next season. So you mentioning the 2010 majors, it's kind of the same thing, where they're built for the next season, right?
Yeah,
but they might surprise this year. So
yeah, I think they lost that year. They lost in 5. They lost in 5 in the conference finals. I want to say they lost to Barrie. I think they had Pietrangelo. That was the year Barrie traded for Pietrangelo. Yeah, maybe lost
I think
5.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. They played. I have a good memory of those playoff ones. Good times.
Good times. But we'll wrap it here. And thank you so much for watching. and listening. And check out Mark's latest article. It'll be in the description of this video and audio and all that good stuff. And next time we see you, it'll be mid-series. We'll have lots to talk about, I'm sure, and hopefully nobody gets suspended.
Hopefully not.
I feel like there's always something in these playoff series. So
you know what? Just give me a line brawl first period and I'm okay with it.
just get it out of the way. Just get it out of the way. You know what's gonna happen. Just do it.
For more content, visit our YouTube channel and check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow the guys on social media at Matt_Mondays, at Nick LaFlame, and at Darius Dominguez.